I'm challenging myself to start with 100 duplicants. Everyone have to survive for 100 cycles to beat this challenge. If even one dupe dies, we lose. Step 1. Preparation. I picked Oceania as the starting planet. It's missing some biological variety compared to Terra, but the word ocean sounds promising to me. I was initially tempted to choose 3 cooks as the starter 3, but then I changed my mind and went for 3 professional farmers. I really wanted to get out from the mush bar hell and advance into Age of Agriculture as soon as possible. Step 2. Suffocation. 100 dupes require 10 kg per second of oxygen to survive. The amount of resources needed to sustain them is insane, but we have no time to care about this for now. They will use up the initial oxygen packet in a few seconds, and suffocation is already imminent. We have to open up these 2 free oxygen packets when they are holding their breath to buy us some time to set up oxygen diffusers. The entire crew has been desperately hoping for this precious packet of air. Now we have another 110 seconds to spare, which is enough to set up the initial power and oxygen diffusers. This amount of diffusers is far from enough, but it buys us more time to open up more air packet and build even more diffusers. But it's still concerning to me that they tend to all rush to the same place to rest or to gasp for air. The lag caused by pathing of 100 dupes and they running back and forth for air can make their job extremely inefficient. But I guess lag is part of the challenge. Step 3. Don't starve together. The dupes spawn with enough calories to survive for 3 cycles. But we can't wait until the starvation warning strike to start preparing for food. We gotta do it now. 100,000 kilocalories of food per cycle is no joke. Mush bars are extremely inefficient and wasteful, but we have no choice at this point because no plants or critters can support 100 dupes this early. The microbe musher is quite power hungry, requiring 240 watts to operate, and that's one of the reasons why mush bars are terrible. But at least this time, power is not a big deal. Since we have so many dupes available, we can just spam manual generators. Gonna spam pitcher pumps too. I want 12 microbe mushers in total. The mushers will be operated by the carefully chosen 12 dupes with higher cooking stats. The best cooks are even denied from doing any other jobs, so they can devote their entire life on making mush bars. So, by cycle 2, the initial food and oxygen production should be fine, at least close enough. But is anything wrong? We have 0 beds, and the dupes have to sleep on the ground. It's not a big deal though. But are we missing something more important? Step 4. Excretion. Aren't these pee waterfalls kind of pretty? I guess that is subjective, but I do got some good reasons to have 0 outhouses. The food poisoning germs are generated when they use the outhouse. But if the dupes don't use their hands while peeing, they will not get germs on them, so they don't have to wash their hands. We are talking about saving the time and room needed to build both outhouses and wash basins required for 100 dupes. Also, the dupes would normally have to pee every cycle, which means they go to the outhouse every 600 seconds. But they can hold their full bladders for 120 seconds, which means they now only pee every 720 seconds. Less time spent on peeing means more time spent on working. But what about these pee water on the ground? We have a way to deal with it. Step 5. Renovation. Since we have so many dupes, we can Wait, what the hell is Marie doing here? Okay, so she fell into the pool while building the 4th pitcher pump. Normally, she should be rescued in time since we only need to dig a few tiles. But when everything is lagging so bad, I'm not really confident on this. The challenge is still going on, and we can't have 99 duplicants pausing their progress just to watch Marie digging herself out, so we have to continue the renovation. Since we have so many dupes, we can easily renovate all the tiles to mesh tiles, which means any liquid including pee water will no longer stay on the tiles. Pee water is not a problem at all when you don't step on it. Meanwhile, we have just planted our initial bristle blossom seeds. It might be weird to see these in planter boxes which need frequent manual water delivery. The regular choice is the hydroponic farm which allows auto irrigation, but it requires advanced research skill to unlock, which I don't have. I really want to start planting these right now, instead of waiting for research. It's not about the pitiful food output from 10 plants at this stage, but about multiplying the seed numbers. If we have 300 bristle plants at some point, that would be enough to feed our entire team of 100. After a handful of harvests, 10 seeds could exponentially grow into 300. but each harvest requires 6 cycles, and I'm not sure how many 6 cycles we have before the terrible mush bars drain all our resources. It's time for our next water show. As you can see, most of the pee is automatically dropped to the bottom and merged with the pool below. It kinda triggered some sort of waves, but gravity will hold them back once the pee water show settles. The new discovered areas also need mesh tile renovations, but with our extreme dupe labor, that could be done shortly. And since there's a lot of natural polluted water pools, we would happen to step on pee when passing by the pools anyway. But what about the pee leaking into the clean water pool? Dupes can perfectly filter out the liquid they want to gather when using pitcher pumps, so mixed liquid is not a problem. Pee water might spread food poisoning germs into clean water, which is consumed when producing mush bars. But mush bars always spawn their own food poisoning germs even when the ingredients are completely sterile, so a contaminated pool doesn't really matter when we have to feed on the yucky mush bars anyway. We are now temporarily safe, and we need to think about the future, so it's time for step 6, calculation. We need 66 kilograms of algae for 1 dupe to breath for 1 cycle. So to sustain 100 dupes for 100 cycles, we need 660 tons of algae. The algae we can find on this planet won't even be close to this number. Apparently, we have to transition to electrolyzing for oxygen as soon as possible. That would require 675 tons of water instead. Still feels like an astronomical number, but since we are literally in an ocean planet, maybe we can manage to produce enough water for this? The electrolyzer system is already under construction, but before that, let us welcome Taipei 101. It will be the only dupe that can learn the advanced research skill and access the supercomputer for quite a few cycles. It's not just one extra dupe power, but an irreplaceable head start in technology. This is now officially the 101 Dupes challenge, and I guess you would agree this makes our challenge 101% legit. First advanced tech we research is gonna be agriculture. We can renovate the planter boxes to auto-irrigating hydroponic farms once the first round of bristle harvest is ready. I also want to use the farming station to accelerate their growing speed. Anything that could give a boost would really help in this challenge. While we are researching, I also need to set up a new clean water pool for electrolyzing. I don't plan to use the closest pools as the water source because, well, it's probably better to use separate pools for food and for oxygen anyway, so their consumption speed can be visualized more clearly. The oxygen in the base is quite scarce. The dupes aren't really dying from this, but they aren't having a good time either. We really need the electrolyzer now. I usually make random electrolyzer designs in my own colonies, but since we're in an extremely intense challenge right now, I chose to not reinvent the wheel and use the design in this guide instead. I picked this design not only because it's easy and quick to build or to expand, but also it is an open SPOM. You don't see open SPOMs that often on YouTube or guides, but it has a significant advantage of producing more than double excess power than a closed form SPOM. Although we have 100 dupes to run manual generators right now, I still want to use hydrogen generators to replace manual labor gradually, so the dupes can instead work on mass construction, farming, or delivery jobs instead. The hydrogen generator is also much more stable than dupes. We all know dupes always run into unexpected random disasters, especially in a 100 dupe colony like this. Do we have a stuck dupe again? Nope. There's a path for Mima to escape. She just somehow chose to stay and shiver in the water? Step 7. Expansion. I am now building the second electrolyzer, which is quite straightforward from the nature of this design. I just have to follow the same tile pattern of the first electrolyzer and make another copy just below it. Meanwhile, the second advanced research has been completed, which unlocks the water sieve. One of the pools used for making mush bars is nearly depleted, and we need to add in more water now. If any of the pools went out, the mushers will not have enough water to operate, but there will be no warning right away, and that makes things even worse. If we only realize the water shortage after half of the dupes are starving, we won't have enough time to react, and we could only accept an inevitable mass starvation death. Now I just have to submerge the second electrolyzer, build tiles to vacuum out the interior, and deconstruct tiles to connect both electrolyzer rooms. The hydrogen from the first electrolyzer will automatically fill the second room, and we are pretty much ready to activate the second electrolyzer. You might be wondering, why are we adding electrolyzers one by one, instead of building everything in one go? That brings up another question. How is the colony even alive? For 100 dupes, in theory, we need 20 oxygen diffusers, or 12 electrolyzers operating non-stop to produce enough oxygen. But we have about 12 oxygen diffusers and 2 electrolyzers right now, which is still insufficient, and the oxygen deficit is even worse before we built these two electrolyzers. The reason nobody is suffocating to death is because the dupes somehow consume less oxygen while they are gasping for air. It's hard to calculate how much oxygen they are actually saving, but if this phenomenon doesn't exist, then every player or YouTuber attempting this challenge would be dead in cycle 1. Even if we manage to rush some oxygen diffusers, we are unlikely to set up 20 and power them up properly before everyone consume the free oxygen packets and suffocate to death. And back to the electrolyzers. Each of them drains 600 kilograms of water per cycle when they are operating full time. If we were to set up 12 of them right now, that would be 7 tons of water per cycle consumed, on top of the 9 tons of water needed to make mush bars. We probably won't even find new water pools fast enough to match this ridiculous consumption. And that's why I want to add the electrolyzers gradually, after ensuring our water supply is fine. There's of course some drawbacks with this, since dupes gasping for air is wasting their time and labor as well. I do want to produce more than enough of oxygen once we secured enough water. Enough about oxygen, let's shift the focus to food now. I made my 3 best farmers learn the farming skill. Hopefully, they can operate the farming station in the greenhouse and boost these bristle blossoms. It really feels like forever to get one harvest from them. But why is the farming station still having this red icon? It says, requires learned skills? Okay, so it turns out the station requires crop tending, which is the 2nd tier skill, and nobody is eligible to learn the skill yet. I guess I was too optimistic, but at least we didn't really invest anything unnecessary. After a few cycles, I know one of the farmers will still get the 2nd skill point and be able to operate it anyway. Since we now have water sieves researched anyway, and the pea water show might be getting a bit old, perhaps it's a nice time to provide some lavatories for our dupes? But we are still feeding on mush bars, which is again, a food poisoning germ generator. I don't really care if the dupes wash their hands at this stage, they will be food poisoned regardless. I'll just put 1 sink in this room, so it qualifies as a washroom and gives 2 morale. But if we were to build washrooms anyway, isn't it kind of meaningless to spam mesh tiles in the beginning? We will see later that there are other reasons to make the mesh tile spam in this challenge. Speaking of food poisoning, maybe we can cook the mush bars into mush fries. Although still terrible, mush fries are more resource efficient than mush bars. We couldn't make these in the first few cycles because it requires the 1st tier cooking skill, and I have 0 dupes that pre-learned the skill. But there's another concern. Although mush fries are more resource efficient, they are much less time efficient than mush bars because they only add 250 kilocalories per cooking action, instead of 800 from making a mush bar from scratch. If every mush bar is immediately cooked into mush fries, I am worried that there will be insufficient cook labor and the dupes will starve. I gotta make the transition carefully and monitor the food stockpile. But the most fearful thing has happened. Within a few minutes, the 2nd pool is also running out of water. There's still another pool to the bottom left, but I'm not sure how long one single pool can support 12 mushers. I really need to sieve some pea water with 2 sieves, since 1 sieve only outputs 5 kg per second. That's 3 tons of water per cycle, actually also a huge number, but our water consumption from mushing is even more enormous than that. Since no starvation warning has popped up yet, I might have about 1 to 2 cycles to restore full mushing capacity before starvation death happens. You might have noticed these orange tiles on the gas overlay. These are natural gas, and they exist because I have flatulent dupes. When I spawned the 100 dupes in the beginning, I did not save and load to pick strong dupes or to undo creating bad dupes. So while I do have good dupes that has pre-learned digging skills, I also have flatulent dupes that would really cause me problems throughout the entire run. And bottomless stomach, anemic, or mouth breather dupes that are much more vulnerable than normal dupes. The amount of natural gas isn't super bothering right now, but I definitely have to deal with it later. We talked about the ridiculous amount of water needed to sustain the dupes, but what I haven't mentioned is we are also consuming a huge amount of dirt. Each mush bar requires 75 kilograms of water and dirt to produce, and each of them has 800 kilocalories. This means we need 90 kilograms of water and dirt to feed 1 dupe per cycle, or 9 tons of water and dirt per cycle to feed 100 dupes. Initially, getting dirt isn't that hard because it's everywhere. But once the initial dirt tiles are used up, producing dirt would not be an easy task. We have polluted water pools and gigantic saltwater oceans waiting for us, but new dirt sources are relatively limited outside of starting biome. This is the actual reason why we can't afford to mush bar for 100 cycles. We might be able to produce 900 tons of water to do so, but there is almost zero chance to find 900 tons of dirt. Did you wonder why we planted bristle first instead of mealwood? While mealwood is water-free and much more dirt-efficient than mush bars, it still requires dirt to grow anyway. If all the dirt was depleted, then the mealwood plants would not save us either. I might try to plant some later, but I wouldn't place my bet on them. The pea water show is actually still going on, and it's because the lavatory output is full. Excess water is produced when you make the lavatory into a self-loop with sieve, so it has to go somewhere. The first harvest of bristle plants are done, and I've got some extra seeds. The excess pea water should be dealt with later, when I add in enough new bristle blossom plants to consume the water. I could of course just dump the excess water somewhere random, and it will go back into the pool since I did the mesh tile spam, but I was just kinda nonchalant and not really in a hurry to fix all the mess making, which is also covered by the mesh tiles. As we mentioned earlier, the real stockpile number we should be panicking at is actually dirt. We have about 30 tons of dirt left, and all of that will be gone in less than 4 cycles. One way to produce dirt is by composing polluted dirt, which can be found in natural tiles and from sieving polluted water. A compost converts 60 kilograms of polluted dirt to clean dirt per cycle, so if I were to match the mush bar consumption, I only need 150 composts? That's ridiculous. Allocating that much space is a problem in the first place, and the composts even require occasional dupe labor to flip. I guess I'll start with about 20 and see how it goes. I probably don't have that much polluted dirt to compose anyway. By cycle 10, it seems stress is starting to be an issue for some dupes. You might find this unsurprising because we have hardly any room to boost their morale. We do have a washroom, but most of the time it's not functioning properly, yet. Despite having no rooms, the overall colony morale is in low supply and low demand. As you can see, their morale is actually still sufficient. But since the mush-fry transition seems stable now, I want to try removing 2 mushers and replace it with mess tables. 4 mess tables aren't going to serve 100 dupes, but I'll manually assign 3 top stress dupe to the tables. And Taipei 101, because it learned researching skill without an interest in researching, so its morale demand would be higher than others. The third electrolyzer almost ready, and the water level in our center pool is rising, thanks to the 2 sieves working full time. I guess we are doing kind of fine for a few cycles, but we can't stop finding new pools. We are consuming water at over 10 tons per cycle. That's 10 full tiles of water on the map. As nearby pools get depleted, we have to explore and dig further to find new pools, so it will get more and more tricky. Who's suffocating again? Ada and Lindsay? Well, I do still have oxygen in the base they can breath. Not every part of the base is oxygenated, but at least some of them are. And temperature? Yeah, we're doing fine. It's time to expand upwards for extra food, polluted water, and it seems there's a lot of resources that could be converted to dirt. These tiny fish here, paku, is also gonna be a promising food source once we start taming them. Look at these hardworking dupes flipping the composts. Aren't they so lovely? But this really makes me feel I shouldn't build 150 of these and occupy my dupes flipping them all day. I want to replace the floor of compost with mesh tiles too, and I want to do it by replacing only every other tiles first and renovate the other half later. If I just placed one single build order on the entire row, I am worried they might get stuck. It's not a big deal on normal colonies, but they might just suffocate to death on this challenge, where they have to constantly search for breathable oxygen. Cycle 12, we're breaking into the swampy biomes. It's somehow flooded with natural gas. Kind of funny that we have carbon dioxide and natural gas floating above oxygen. Anyway, the dupes can retreat back to base quickly using fire poles, so I guess they wouldn't risk suffocating. I just have to make sure they don't get stuck. But running back and forth gasping for air isn't really efficient either, so I'll add an oxygen diffuser up there. I've been removing these in my base since they were replaced by electrolyzers, but they're still nice to serve as a quick mobile oxygen producer to support new discovered areas. I've got more bristle seeds from digging and a new round of harvest. Maybe this many plants can make the washroom function normally? I just can't be bothered to do the math on this one, since I wasn't really caring that much about making a mess. Cycle 13, time to bravely dig into and open up these polluted water pools. They will just fall by gravity and all flow into this mixed pool on the bottom, just like the pea water from dupes. In my regular colonies, I don't really do big pools on the bottom of my base. Since I don't need that much water, I tend to just ignore them and prevent digging into them in the first place. But saying I don't need that much water is really disrespectful to this 100 dupes challenge. And it's the time to work on the second alternative food source, the paku. They are known to reproduce super fast and grow exponentially in a few cycles. But they used to consume 140 kilograms of algae per cycle, which makes feeding with algae really unfeasible. Good news is, the amount is reduced to 7.5 kilograms per cycle, so we can definitely afford to feed them algae now. We just have to build more electrolyzers to replace more oxygen diffusers, so algae won't be exhausted by the lungs of 100 dupes. And we've found a frozen biome to the left. Although we still have lots of polluted water to purify, having some clean ice in our stockpile could be very handy later. Glacier terrain are common in Terra, but I'm not that sure if they can be found in Oceania, so I rolled the large glacier trait when starting this colony to make sure they would generate. So let us set up the fourth electrolyzer. Thank you, Turner. That's very smart of you to stand on this side of the wall. Lucky he's near some polluted dirt tiles which keep releasing polluted oxygen, so he isn't dead yet. And did we ever care about peeing on the ground? We do need to access the resources on the right, so this looks better now. Digging progress near the glacier is somehow halted, and it's blocked by these two granite tiles. I do have dupes that spawn with first level of digging skill to deal with these, but I never really found which exact dupes learned these skills. They aren't interested in digging, so I couldn't find them by sorting digging skills. I'll just summon them with Yellow Alert. Yellow Alert is usually not a great idea because it calls the wrong dupes to work at something they are not good at. But for this scenario, only dupes that can actually dig granite will come to the mission, so nothing can really go wrong. Okay, so I guess this many bristles still aren't gonna deal with 100 dupes peeing in time. I'll just dump the excess to the pools. There's a new problem too. The plants are overheating, probably due to the compost spam above them. Well, it's time to use the ice we just found in the glacier. Time for some ice temp shift plate spam. This should cool down the environment a bit, while adding more water into our pools. It's time to start setting up hydrogen generators to make the electrolyzers self-powering, or what we call a SPOM. We will begin to replace more and more manual generators with hydrogen generators. Currently, this room has about 53 kilograms per tile of hydrogen. There's 26 tiles in here, so about 1400 kilograms of hydrogen. That's enough to run a hydrogen generator for 20 cycles non-stop. Usually, excess power from SPOM isn't powerful enough to power the entire base alone. But our Open SPOM really generates way too much power, since it's directly releasing oxygen into our base, instead of spending power to pump oxygen out from the module. We just can't ever stop expanding. One more water sieve to process the polluted water, dig more algae to feed the Paku group, and open up another polluted water pool. There's a serious issue we have been ignoring. Carbon dioxide is building up in the base, and it's hard for oxygen to push them away. One dupe exhales 2 grams of carbon dioxide per second. This doesn't seem much, but with 100 dupes, they would be exhaling 200 grams per second, or 120 kilograms per cycle. Since we are now in cycle 17, in theory, I should have about 2,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide in my base, and everyone would have suffocated already. But luckily, when dupes are holding their breath, they not only stop consuming oxygen, but also stop exhaling carbon dioxide. This phenomenon is pretty much impossible to avoid even if you want to, just like the oxygen consumption. If it doesn't exist, every player or YouTuber doing this challenge would suffocate to death if their base is flooded with 360 kilograms of carbon dioxide in cycle 3 before they can research anything to remove them. Despite all this, it's probably time to start skimming them out so the oxygen could spread out better within the base. And this layer of natural gas? They will never leave my base if I don't pump them out. They can't be skimmed like carbon dioxide, but pumping them into a canister filler should solve the problem. The canister filler automatically separates assorted gas, so it's very convenient if I want to utilize those gas later. Finally, in cycle 18, my farmers got the second skill point, so now they can operate the farming stations. I want to make the room to the left a greenhouse too, but there's an unmelted temp shift plate blocking there. Let's just deconstruct it. The oxygen in base is looking even better now. A much larger portion of the base is now somewhat oxygenated thanks to the carbon skimmers. Let's see if adding the fifth electrolyzer makes another improvement. And I'll babysit the wall building so they don't stuck themselves on the other side of wall again. Maybe if I replace these tiles with airflow version, the oxygen can flow to the left side of the pool more smoothly. Bristles overheating again? I guess most of my ice reserves will be used on temp shifts cooling these plants. Let's take a look at the paku. They are still wild, but they indeed ate from feeder. This means they are on the way to being tamed. They're quite a weird species. It takes them longer to be tamed than to reproduce and lay another egg. Once their initial taming phase is completed, they will start multiply like crazy. Well, if we can find enough liquid to make a pool big enough for that many fish to live in. Speaking of big pools, we shall research the desalinators and be prepared to transition into making clean water from the saltwater oceans. This gas pump is doing a good job at removing natural gas. The area is replaced with carbon dioxide, which is clearly better because carbon dioxide won't cause eye irritation to the dupes. But the bristles here are wilting again because they are freezing? I guess that's what would happen when we have 800 kilograms of ice melting on them. But I'm sure with all the compost above them, they will be warmed back to normal temperature pretty soon, so we don't need to do anything about it. Cycle 20. Time for another new industry, which is this sludge press. They can convert mud to dirt and water. Both of them are exactly what we are hoping for. And according to the document, who doesn't love to play with mud? Time for even more skimmers, more hydrogen generators, and this pool on the bottom is running out, so it's also time to open another pool on the top. We still have many pools to work with, but again, dirt is still the resource I'm worried about the most. With just 21 tons left, I need to be very careful of my decisions from now. Cycle 21, fire poles and ladders, even more fire poles and ladders, more grills, and an egg cracker. Because paku is a very weird species. Did I already mention that? If you cook a paku into cooked seafood, that is 1600 kilocalories. But if you cook their eggs into omelets, each egg would give us 5600 kilocalories. So we will wait for their population to grow first, but later on, we would want to feed on their eggs instead of their meat. We've got about 15 tons of mud right now, looking pretty good. If we think about it, mud can be processed into dirt and water, and we can make mush bars using dirt and water. So is that kind of like molecular gastronomy? Since we have much more free dupe labor after introducing the hydrogen generators, I'll try to plant my mealwood seeds. I probably didn't pick a good spot. They will often overheat since they're next to the electrolyzers. But I was literally just trying, alright? My money is still on paku and bristles. But I guess we can have one more dedicated farmer, as we now have more bristle plants anyway. It's the time to officially explore the ocean. Once we can stably extract clean water from the enormous saltwater pools, we shall no longer be worried about our water consumption, at least until we drain the ocean too. Cycle 22, 17 tons of dirt left. And this is one of the last natural dirt tiles we can find. Can our bristles and paku grow faster, please? This feels so wrong. The carbon dioxide is always floating on the oxygen zone. As our oxygen density is still not strong enough to push other gas away, I guess that calls for even more carbon skimmers. Yup, even with just half a cycle of skimming, we can visualize the oxygen force getting even stronger. But after all, we still need to produce more oxygen in the first place. I didn't want to extend from the 5 electrolyzers on the right anymore, because putting all the oxygen production in the same spot isn't a good idea. The base would be overpressured on the right and underpressured on the left. So I wanted to start new electrolyzers on the left to balance things out. A new oxygen source also means the dupes have a chance to find oxygen from a closer spot, instead of running to the right every time. There is a little restriction with open electrolyzers, which is the tile connecting the electrolyzer to the base must also be oxygen, so the oxygen generated from electrolyzer can merge with it. If this tile wasn't oxygen, the system would pause working. It's a little challenging because our base is not very oxygenated, so that's why I built an oxygen diffuser here to manually produce oxygen at this area and kickstart this system. Once the system starts working, we wouldn't need the diffuser anymore. Even if some random gas blocked the output, it would be quickly pushed away by oxygen. The mealwood plants here are drowning. I guess I should have stick to planter boxes on mesh tiles, but right now there's not enough height to do this renovation. But the good news is, we have a tame paku now. If we can provide them with a larger pool and have enough algae to feed, we would be swimming in fish. The pool dedicated to electrolyzing is running low. It has lasted much longer than our food pools without refilling, because the electrolyzers consumes much less water than the terrible mush bars. But it's time to refill it. There's a clean water pool above it, but we need to clear out the polluted water on the way first. This is the only pool that I don't want random liquid to mix in. I found a big group of dirt in the swampy biome. That's quite lucky. But let's set up more sludge press to accelerate mud to dirt conversion and support the electrolyzer pool with the water it produces. This is the pool that we cannot afford to go wrong. The algae stockpile is running low, but we can use the algae distiller to convert slime into algae and polluted water, and both of them are very valuable resources. Let's check how the ocean development is going. Wait, we still have dupes making messes. I guess 6 lavatories just won't serve all of them. I don't think separating them into 17 different schedules would solve the problem either. Since we freed more space from removing batteries and manual generators, let's add a second washroom. We were almost ignoring the basic duplicant needs in the beginning, but as more things gets automated and stabilized, the dupes still deserve a better living quarters for their hard work surviving this harsh challenge. We're going to enlarge the size of the fish pool. Paku don't mind living in mixed liquids, so we only have a single grand mission, which is to merge as much liquid into our fish pool as possible. Raising Paku only relies on feeding them algae from the fish feeder, and they don't have to be in a stable room like most critters. But I still want to make this whole thing into a room to count the amount of fish and eggs we currently have. The water pool draining procedure is ready to launch. It's probably the last quick clean water source we can find, without having to sieve polluted water or melting ice. I have tried to plant some mushrooms here. Now that the carbon has been skimmed, they can no longer grow in oxygen. I guess I'll just give up mushrooms completely, since they feed on slime to grow, and slime could be distilled into algae to feed the fish instead. The salt water on the right top is already merged into the fish lake, and the fish are no longer cramped due to the increased pool size, but they will quickly reproduce and become cramped again. Now it all depends on how fast we can find and merge new pools for our fish. This water pool has been running dry long ago. It's the very first pool we have when we started this challenge, but it's time to let it go and replace it with something useful. You might thought developing the ocean on the left is straightforward, but there's some terrain inside which can block the pump from accessing most of the ocean once the water level drops. If dupes were to go in that far to dig the terrain out, I'm worried they will suffocate to death because they will get eye irritation very quickly when contacting with salt water. This will slow them down drastically when they are returning to gasp for air. This part of the base is still not very well oxygenated, and we didn't even consider the lag caused by 100 dupes, which will further delay their reaction time. So I guess I will start the next electrolyzer right here. At least we can provide oxygen as soon as they escape the surface of the ocean. Once again, we need an oxygen diffuser to produce oxygen in the first place so we can kickstart this open electrolyzer. But our algae stockpile is 0. Time for another round of algae digging, I guess. Alright, algae back online. The area is now oxygenated. Here comes our third electrolyzing area, or the 7th and 8th electrolyzers. Because we have electrolyzers on both sides, the carbon dioxide is kinda surrounded by oxygen. Unfortunately, they are now lingering on top of my bristle blossoms and halted their growth because the pressure of these carbon dioxide is too low. While I was thinking what to do with these carbon dioxide, they managed to sort of mess up my electrolyzer. Technically, it's a dupe breathing the oxygen and rushing in the room to exhale. How should I deal with this random carbon dioxide gas? I guess if I build a tile there, it would be deleted if I'm lucky enough to finish the construction while the gas overlapped with the tile. No luck. But I should get this the second time, right? Whatever. On the bright side, at least the third time is guaranteed to fix it. So I wanted to clean out this area. It has a lot of organic stuff like mud, polluted mud and dirt. On top of that, this looks like a nice place to grow new plants. Since it's close to the glacier, it's much cooler than my base. But this entire top area is so unbreathable, and I'm out of algae once again. I could try to dig some more, but if I were to grow plants up here, the dupes would be visiting this place very frequently, and the algae consumption would be huge. I really want to keep most of the algae for my fish. Are there no other ways besides algae and electrolyzing? While thinking about an alternative, the desalinator is done, and we can start feeding on the ocean. Although our builds are very random, the pipes aren't spaghetti at all. I guess when we have so few pipes, it just can't be too unorganized. So I decided the solution to oxygenate the top, it's the sublimation station. They convert polluted dirt to polluted oxygen. Polluted or not, it does prevent my dupes from suffocating. I need a safe working space now, and worry about purifying them later. While we are setting up the station and the power supply, suffocation warning just won't stop popping up. Scary indeed, but it's gonna be much better once the sublimation starts. We got 2 blue breathable areas already, and I'm sure it will get even better. Cycle 35, we should have a lot of fish already. Let's check how many we have. 7? That's not really going right. The fish are not cramped, and the feeder still has algae in it. So what's the problem here? So it seems the water level dropped when we merged ocean, and the feeder is now too high for the fish to reach the food. If I build a new one in a lower level, it should feed them properly, so I would be swimming in fish for real this time, right? Exploring the glacier is really risky as well, because chilly surrounding will compromise the mobility of duplicants. Another sublimation station here shall make this a much safer workspace. I'm thinking about where I should put the next electrolyzer. Since we now have electrolyzers on the right and on the left, I guess the next one will go to the top, which can also support my dupes digging into the ocean on the right. There's a lot of polluted oxygen here, probably because I was processing slime in this area. Purifying these should make the oxygen flow much smoother. The 9th electrolyzer is already online, and the 10th is under construction. We are getting closer to produce enough oxygen for the entire colony. Why is the liquid pipe for the sieve broken? I guess it's because the polluted ice that melted into polluted water was being sieved while it was still sub-zero, so it froze and broke the pipe. But the pool was already dry anyway. Do I even need this sieve? Probably should just hurry up and find a new water source. These composts are really hot. Although dupes won't overheat easily like the plants, they can still suffer from toasty surroundings, which stresses them and slow them down. Maybe the temporary ice cooling also works on this? And speaking of the plants, it's time to start migrating them up to the much cooler environment. We really don't have that much ice and patience to cool them manually every cycle. Where can we find the irrigation for these new bristles? This ocean to the left of the glacier looks like a nice candidate. I want to build a layer of mesh tile so they can pass by without jumping into water. So, most of the base should be oxygenated. Wait, what? Frostbite? This fossil area is negative 85 degrees? I wasn't aware of that. They managed to retreat in time, but I need a triage cot nearby immediately to prepare for any further emergencies. I didn't expect that I would need a triage cot in this challenge, honestly. Carbon dioxide is building up and make this area uninhabitable. But once I open up this wall, it should sink to the bottom, and the skimmers would deal with it. Although it's on the back of the SPOM, so the oxygen might be a bit thin if too many dupes enter this area. Good news is, the desalinator just started working. Bad news is, it just stopped working. I bet it's because I sent the cold sub-zero brine into it again. I'll deal with it later. There's another glacier to the right of our new bristle site. It's quite a nice find, because our electrolyzing pool is dry once again. Time for some emergency ice refilling. This is of course just a temporary workaround. We need a new stable source of water. Let's add a second desalinator. I need a new hydrogen generator to provide enough power, but where should I place it? I can't find a convenient place nearby. I guess I'll just get rid of these bristle plants. They're rarely growing properly in this area anyway. What's this buried geyser in the ocean? A minor volcano, not very useful for this challenge. I have opened up the warm ocean which mixed with the cold brine, so the desalinator should be good to restart now. Oh shoot, the liquid packets that were left in the pipe are still freezing. I need to vent these packets out first and repump the warm liquid again. Cycle 42, we are down to 8 tons of dirt. We have removed some mushers, so we aren't consuming as much dirt as in Cycle 5, but 8 tons of dirt still won't last long. I hope this small batch of dirt and the compost can hold long enough until my fish and plants can take over the role of feeding my dupes. Cold liquid vented out, the desalinator should be good to go this time for real. Who's suffocating again? It's Bubbles. Running underwater is painfully slow, but at least we prepared oxygen for her as soon as she made it out from the surface. Digging could sometimes be really risky too, when the retreat path is blocked by falling mud. It requires player attention and micromanagement, otherwise the dupes would just stare at the blocking mud and suffocate to death. In this challenge, any digging order will likely attract a bunch of dupes swarming in, which makes suffocation even more threatening. Our fish pool is cramped again. That's why we are digging towards this direction, so we can prepare to release the ocean on the right. The play kind of feels routine at this point, but we just can't ever stop digging for more resources to satisfy 100 dupes. I very rarely have more than 10 dupes for my normal colonies, as I can do everything quickly with less than 10 dupes already. Since I don't need that many resources, I can preserve most of the biomes untouched. But when doing a 100 dupes challenge like this, expanding really hits different. I am really excited just to think about how big this fish pool could be by the time we beat the challenge. We now have 36 bristle plants growing in this temperate environment. It takes 3 plants to feed 1 duplicant, so these plants could support 12 dupes without consuming any dirt. Time to plant down the 8 new seeds we have. The plants that were being cooked inside the base were definitely not having a good time. I could still cool them occasionally with ice, but maybe I should just give them up completely. Let's set up a new hydrogen generator and power grid so we can power another sublimation station here. The oxygen was almost exhausted, but the station should make the area breathable once again. And another polluted water pool will be released to refill the bottom pool. One nice thing about water sieves is that you can send water or even salt water through without causing any damage to the sieves. This means we do not need to do any sorting or filtering, and we can just pump random mixed water-based liquid into the sieve. Cycle 48. The farming area is filled with polluted oxygen, and the base is mostly oxygen, except these natural gas that never goes away. I guess that's why most players dislike picking flatulent duplicants. If we make these dupes wear an atmosuit permanently, their fart won't ever be released into the environment, but that will make the dupes forever gasping for air, which seriously compromises their working ability. On top of that, it would trigger a bug that makes them never consume any oxygen. I don't really want to deliberately exploit this bug. Whose turn to suffocate this time? Lindsay? Can you stop sleeping? Okay, she just waked up, but can you stop freezing? Thank you. By the way, have you noticed we are running the colony in a very low-tech style? We have survived about half of 100 cycles with no atmosuits, no steel, no plastic, and our entire power grid is also made from the basic 1000-watt wire. Now I want to keep this style until we beat the challenge. We do have electrolyzers, hydrogen generators, and smart batteries, so I wouldn't call this a Stone Age colony. A Bronze Age colony, maybe? We have 8 microbe mushers still running at this moment, but I think it's the time to cut it to 7. I didn't really do the math of how much food our alternative food source is providing, so I'm merely cutting their power supply instead of deconstructing them. If a sudden food shortage hits me, I could reconnect the wire and immediately resume producing with 8 or even 10 mushers. But in reality, the fish went quickly cramped again, although we just dumped a new pool onto them. I need to cook some of the eggs now to not waste them, and maybe shut down 2 more mushers and run with the remaining 5. And we just also got enough seeds to plant the 4th row of bristles. Oh wait, the water level of our pool is now flooding the lower fish feeder. We have to switch back to the upper one. There's so many micromanagement and babysitting required. Had we not noticed the flooding, the fish would soon stop reproducing, and the colony might just collapse within a few cycles. Cycle 50, we are down to 5 tons of dirt. We now only have 5 mushers running, but that still consumes about 5 tons of dirt per cycle. All of our mud was depleted, so other than digging these last natural tiles, we could only rely on composting polluted dirt. And I think I need to remove these suffering mealwoods soon. Since the food stockpile looks stable after running with only 5 mushers, it's time to completely remove the unused mushers and replace them with something that improves my dupe's quality of life. Notice that our fish pool is only separated to an ocean on the right with only a column of sand. If we can dig out these sand, we can conceptually connect the ocean without moving huge bodies of water. Time for another 3 new rows of bristle plants. We don't have that many new seeds yet, but can't hurt to prepare their farm plots in advance. We already have 48 plants on the left, which can support 16 duplicants. After we manage to fill in all the new farm plots, we should be able to feed 25 duplicants with gristleberries, which is a quarter of our 100 dupes. The ocean connection plan took more than 4 cycles. It's probably because we are building the farm plots at the same time, and the area is full of carbon dioxide, so they have some hard time digging deeper. But we are almost there. There are 4 wild thimble reeds here that we were preserving carefully. Now we can enclose this area, make it into a natural reserve, to reward our hard-working duplicants. I also wanted to expand my mess hall. Let's say goodbye to these suffering bristles and all the ice temp shift plates. Since we don't need to babysit these plants anymore, the carbon skimmers can go as well. They are pretty good at removing carbon dioxide, so as long as we have even just 1 skimmer left, it has the capacity to deal with 100 dupes exhaling. What's going wrong with this duplicant? Can you really fall indefinitely like that? Is there something I can do to help her? Okay, it takes her 20 seconds to stop falling. Since we're playing on double speed, that's 40 seconds in game. Is the lag from 100 dupes that bad everyone needs 40 seconds to switch to their next action? Anyway, at least the room renovation is done. Wait, I don't want 100 dupes drinking water every cycle. I need to disable the water cooler immediately. And here comes our first Great Hall. Great Hall not? Great Hall, yes, thank you. The ocean connection is done, and there's even another ocean to the right that we can reach with just a little digging. But the demand for more water just never stops. Our fish just became cramped again in less than a cycle after the most recent ocean expansion. Here comes the second ocean. They aren't immediately uncramped because we need more than 350 kilograms of liquid per tile to be considered valid connection for our fish. As soon as enough water flow in, they should be back to normal state and start reproducing again. We wouldn't stop here for sure. Let's open up the third pool on the top. Let's just merge every pool into our fish pool and create a Pacific Ocean. Cycle 57, our duplicants are actually really chill. They have high morale, low stress, everything is going well. And we have a natural reserve. Wait, it's not a room? Oh, I got it. I'm missing one door to enclose the whole thing. Still not a room? Room size is too big, okay? We will remove this bottle emptier and separate the SPOM from the natural reserve. So many suffocation warning popping up. This area is getting dangerous. We need a pump here to get rid of all these natural gas. And sorry for these wilting mealwood plants, but I guess you don't really belong in this colony. At least the natural reserve is completed. We did treat the plants well, right? It's ocean time again. After surviving through the first half of Suffocation and Starvation hell, this challenge has now become a soothing digging project. But now I wonder, is there an easy way to know how many tiles of water we actually have in our giant fish pool without putting them into a rectangular shaped terrain? The hydro sensor only detects the weight of liquid in a single tile, and that doesn't help at all. The room overlay counts both the liquid and gas in a room, so that's not what we want either. But there is a solution, and we will see pretty soon. A desalinator can produce about 2,700 kilograms of clean water per cycle. That's a huge number, but we now have so many bristle blossom, and I'm worried that we'll overload the desalinator. Time for a second one. Wait, why do I suddenly have so little food left? I recalled that I have 90,000 kilocalories left a cycle ago? But considering our colony consumes 100,000 kilocalories per cycle, maybe this fluctuation is just normal? Am I overreacting? Anyway, let's try building some more electric grill near our plant area, which requires a lot of cooking to make bristleberries. Although the imported salt water is a bit warm, the temperature up here is still cool thanks to the nearby glaciers. 21 new bristle seeds reporting in. I feel like picking 3 farmers as the initial 3 is indeed a great move. They are capable to produce 33% more seeds than normal dupes when harvesting, on top of 50% faster harvest speed. Let's turn our focus back to the fish pool again, because we just researched the critter sensor, which could count the amount of critters in a room for us. The displayed number is fluctuating a bit, but we roughly have 62 critters in this room. We finally have an actual number that we could use for calculation. So what does this imply? Each pacu requires 8 tiles of liquid to live and reproduce comfortably. This means we have about 62 times 8, which is about 496 tiles of liquid currently in our fish pool. Since the fish are currently cramped again, we know the pool size won't be much larger than that. And this door here worth mentioning, it's preventing the fish from swimming to the right into the vast ocean. We don't really want them to swim away, apparently. On compact builds, they can be restricted in an even more narrow pool to prevent them moving too much. But that's kinda too much animal abusing. I'm fine with the current setup anyway. But the most important thing is that the door only separates one room from another, but it doesn't cut the ocean into 2 different oceans from the point of view of the fish. So although the critter sensor only reads the amount of critters in this room, our fish actually reads their room size or pool size from the entire ocean. That's why we could just keep merging new ocean in and give them more room to reproduce. But of course, when there's more fish in the pool, we need much more algae to feed them as well. Even if their diet is reduced to 7.5 kilograms of algae per cycle, we still need 300 kilograms of algae every cycle to feed 40 fish. Why is it 40 and not 60 though? Because the critter sensor was set to count both critters and eggs in the room, so not all 62 we saw are grown fish. Why is the breathability so bad at the bottom now? It's all occupied with natural gas. But I feel like there wasn't enough oxygen in the first place, or they should compress the natural gas into a few tiles. This pipe here near the electrolyzers is kinda suspicious. Why isn't it full? I got it. A desalinator isn't enough to support 5 electrolyzer running full time. I need more water sources for them. As the ocean gets deeper, I'm nervous about this one-tile wall and the sand below it. When we stack liquid too high, they can start causing pressure damage on the bottom or to the side. But if I reinforce the wall with a second layer of tile, that should make them much less vulnerable to pressure damage. I can't imagine what kind of mess it would be if this wall holding the entire ocean breaks. So, with the most recent ocean joining in, the total fish count is now 79, and we can uncheck the egg counting to know the literal fish count is 50, so egg count is 29. But the fish pool is for their reproduction purpose. I don't want to use those water for electrolyzing. So why not add a new desalinator on the bottom to support the electrolyzers and merge the bottom saltwater pool to feed the desalinator? As we mentioned, mixed water type liquids can pass through desalinator and water sieve without causing any damage. So we can just randomly pump all these mixed liquid through these two buildings and enjoy the output clean water without filtering in advance. But this pool here is already dry long ago, so let's remove it with the floor to improve air circulation. We'll also throw in a new carbon skimmer to assist cleaning the air. Now that's much better. The canister filler is really handy for dealing with all sort of random gas. Let's clean up some unused pipes as well. Do you ever wonder, why don't we have a lot of pipes despite having 100 dupes in our colony? This is because liquid pipes have a really huge capacity. 10 kilograms per second of liquid can pass through one pipe, which is 6 tons per cycle, and that is enough to support electrolyzing for 88 duplicants. On the other hand, gas pipe can only handle 1 kilogram per second, so in theory, we need like 20 gas pumps and 10 separate gas pipes just to supply oxygen for our dupes. But in our actual colony, we don't have a single pipe for oxygen so far because we are using the open electrolyzer design. Maybe a grid of 10 gas pipes can be built very clean and organized, but it can't be cleaner than not having those pipes in the first place, right? Cycle 71. How much fish do we have now? 55 fish and 28 eggs. Nice. I believe it's time to shut down the last 2 microbe mushers. If nothing goes wrong for a few cycles, we can deconstruct them and officially advance from musher age to farming and fishing age. There's even some free food from the nature that we never saw until now. Before I actually attempt this 100 dupes challenge, I thought digging out for buried natural food would be essential, but it seems the key to not starve is to just set up enough microbe mushers immediately, like 12 or 15 of them. It turns out the bristles up here still has some temperature issue. It's too hot at the right because they're neighboring a warm biome, and too cold at the left. But a simple insulated tile renovation should deal with this easily. We have a buried geyser here. What could it be? Hydrogen vent. Not very useful because we already have tons of hydrogen in our base thanks to the Open SPOM design. And this one over here? Hot polluted oxygen vent. Nah, this one is just completely useless, even for a normal colony. The colony is so breathable now. What could ever go wrong? Cycle 74. The grand moment has come. We proved ourselves worthy of living without any microbe mushers. Let's remove all these composts because we don't need to eat dirt anymore. Remove the hydrogen generators, remove the batteries, remove the power grid that supports the mushers, and of course, remove the mushers themselves. Remove the farm tiles that doesn't do anything now, remove supercomputers because we don't need researching anymore. Remove the sludge press because again, we don't need to eat tons of dirt anymore. Remove all the generators that run the sludge press too. Remove the bristle farm plots in our base because we already have a proper farm on the top. It's crazy to think about how much infrastructure was built just to support 12 microbe mushers running full time. Now that all these things are gone, I want to give my duplicants a very special gift. Beds. Cycle 80. We finally have 100 beds, but don't we actually have 101 dupes? Our 101st duplicant, Taipei 101, is a very special duplicant for this challenge, so I think it deserves a special treatment. But before that, why don't we spam some mess tables for every dupe too? We weren't even caring about food preservation before, when we were always on the edge of starvation. But now, with our huge army of fish and plants, some fridges to preserve food and carbon dioxide could be handy too. Whenever we make new buildings that attract large amount of dupes, there would be a sudden burst of carbon dioxide on the site. Although there are carbon skimmers on the bottom, it would take too long for the carbon dioxide to sink. We need to deal with it in place, so our dupes won't suffocate while eating. The challenge doesn't end here. A lot of our bristles have wilted because there's too much random gas up here. Maybe removing one row of farm plots could make those gas dissipate, and adding in another skimmer to remove carbon dioxide? It doesn't work well. The fundamental problem isn't new to us. All our oxygen are produced at the bottom, and the oxygen needs to drift a long distance before they could reach the top. But we already have 12 electrolyzer running. I don't really want to add one more. I'm gonna try something new. Let's vent some oxygen up here using a gas pump. But isn't this kinda wasting power? We're just pumping oxygen from the bottom to the top when they could naturally flow up? Yes, it is a waste of power, but we have been saving an insane 4.8 kilowatts of power since the early game by not having any oxygen pumps. We now have tons of hydrogen piling up that could never be used. Maybe just for once, we can waste 240 watts of power, or 480 maybe, to serve my laziness? An achievement? That's rare. What is it? Super sustainable? Wow. It usually takes hundreds of cycles to complete this one. The energy demanded is quite a lot, which equals a single duplicant running on a manual generator non-stop for 1000 cycles. But we have 100 dupes, so we could have solved this one by having all of them running the wheel for 10 cycles. Of course, that's not what we actually done, but I guess a cycle 88 super sustainable is very reasonable. And why not try some recreation building for our dupes? The mechanical surfboard really fits our challenge theme because it splashes water on the floor during use. And guess what? That's what we have been doing for the entire run. Speaking of water, we might as well build some proper washrooms. You know, we have a lot of weird looking washrooms with only one sink. Now the mush bar hell is no more. Let's make a high standard of hygiene in this colony. 97 fish. Is that our best? Of course not. I've realized 100 dupes is still no match for the vastness of the oceans. We probably have so much water, too much even for 200 dupes. But again, we need to be careful and provide extra oxygen when digging out a new area. It would be so embarrassing to fail at the last 10 cycles. Look what we found. The teleporters. Should we give it a try? Is this an Escher waterfall here? The stuff that could be used to build natural infinite storages? We probably don't want this kind of surprise now. We just want more ocean flowing in and more tiles occupied by liquid. We now have 113 fish, which means the pool is now 900 tiles of ocean. If my math is right, this fish pool alone can now feed 300 duplicants as long as we have the algae to feed all the fish. This 100 dupes challenge is really popular. I'm not the first one to attempt it, but almost all of the challengers and YouTubers that tried has failed to beat the challenge. I really wanted to try it out myself, but I was hesitating. Is this challenge actually beatable? Would my laptop crash or lag like a slideshow when I play with 100 duplicants? But then, I was inspired by a great rock climber, Alex Honnold, who just free soloed Taipei 101 on January 25. So I thought, if he can do an insane climb on a 500-meter building without using any ropes, why couldn't I beat a mere 100 dupe challenge? Speaking of Taipei 101, let's send it into the teleporter planet. The lag is really serious though. As we can see, there's a noticeable delay between each digging job. I thought it could dig the dirt to supply the outhouse in time, but isn't this just nostalgic? Our colony started and thrived with 101 dupes peeing on the floor every day. But now that I think of it, we didn't really utilize the resources in the teleporter planet. We have thousands of tons of ocean still available, we didn't ranch other critters, and we didn't launch a rocket for space resources. If we used all these resources well, maybe we can actually do a 150 dupes challenge? Or even 200 dupes? Here comes cycle 100. We have successfully beat the challenge. Oh, by the way, no care packages are printed in this run. I guess printing a 4000 kilocalories food package doesn't help feeding 100 dupes at all anyway. There is one last thing to do. A solo bed for our brave warrior, Taipei 101. Is this challenge too easy for you? I have a totally insane one coming up. We're starting in an absolute zero planet. Our dupes are immediately ambushed by a negative 200 degrees environment, and frostbite is imminent. There's not much we can find besides coldness. Is this water? Nope, it's liquid oxygen. Want to see how this challenge is even possible, or a 150 dupes challenge? Subscribe and we'll see you next video. Oh, by the way, we have about 120 fish at the end, and this is how the final colony looks like. I will provide the save file on cycle 1 if you would like to give this challenge a try. Good luck!